football today on SportsGrid. Kevin Walsh with you following the biggest Sunday we have seen so far in the National Football League. We had three monster games coming into this weekend that we knew were going to shape markets and move a lot. And we are being given a new Super Bowl favorite, a new MVP favorite, a new AFC West favorite. To talk with me about all of these things, he wouldn't miss it for the world, Joe Lisi, Mr. Go for the Two. Joe, it is great to see you here to talk about what we saw yesterday.
Oh, unbelievable action in week number 11, Kev. Boots on the ground. We saw the cream rise to the top in the AFC, and we saw the cream rise to the top in the NFC with that dominant win.
Okay. Listen to me. Just because you put a stadium behind you doesn't mean you can say boots on the ground. You were watching this game in North Jersey like the rest of us. But let's break it down here, Lisi, because Kansas City losing to Denver, I think, is the biggest result we've seen so far this season. It does not, well, maybe for some, it will suggest Kansas City is fraudulent, not all that good. I wouldn't go that far. But what I would say is this team could miss the playoffs. And the market has reflected that now. This team has a shorter price by a lot to miss the postseason than win their division, which they have won year in and year out. And that goes back to before Mahomes. With Alex Smith, we saw consistently this team take the top of the division. And a win here would have put them as favorites to do that again. They would be a loss back of Denver with one to go in Arrowhead. They are now 3 losses back of the Broncos, sitting at 5-5. Entering week number 12. Lisi, how panicked should Kansas City Chiefs fans and backers be following this result?
I think very, Kevin. You and I had talked about it in the pregame that I actually thought the wrong team was favored in the matchup, not to take away from the dominance of the Kansas City Chiefs, but entering that matchup, Denver had won 7 straight. They were undefeated at home, 5-0, and had won those games by an average margin of victory of 12.2 points per game. Their quarterback, Bo Nix, outduels Pat Mahomes 295 to 275. The defense forced turnovers, and at the end of the day, they hold Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs to 5 of 13 on third down conversions. That was a dominant effort from the defensive perspective, and the Kansas City Chiefs are on the back 9. They're an aging team when it relates to Travis Kelce and the defensive side of the ball. I think their defense isn't as dominant as they have been in recent years, and teams have exploited them. And Sean Payton and the Chargers and some other teams in the AFC have now closed the gap, and now they're a mortal football team fighting for their playoff lives.
This is a team who right now is 2-4 against projected playoff teams. I didn't include Jacksonville in that. I did include Detroit and Baltimore. They are currently 0-4 against teams that are making the AFC playoffs as of today. And you can use those things to certainly point at how good is Kansas City really, because that is a real question right now. But it is also so important when we talk about tiebreakers. The reality with this loss for Kansas City, Joe, is the margin for error is gone. They have to finish with a better record than the Jacksonville Jaguars, because they have already lost that tiebreaker as Jacksonville gets a huge win against the Chargers. They have to beat the Chargers next go around just to pull even with them on the season. This is a team who has to still play the Houston Texans, and we might think, oh, that'll be fine. The Texans are playing better ball. They have to play the Indianapolis Colts, who will be coming off of a bye. A loss there, you're 5-6. The Chiefs are favored in that game. We'll break that game down when the time comes, but it's not a gimme. It's not a layup. They're not a 14-point favorite in this spot or anything of the nature for the Chiefs. Do I think they're one of the 4 best teams in football? No. One of the 10 best teams in football? Yes. But this isn't the college football playoff. You don't get in based on perception, or you get in on your record. That's how you make it. And Kansas City's record, Joe, is alarming. They've never been 5-5 before with Patrick Mahomes, and they are being smashed in the face with regression in one-score games. They lived in these one-score games for 2 years, and they won them all, it felt like. They are 0-5 in one-score games this season, Joe. A jarring number.
Yeah, and let's take it a step further, Kev. 5 of their losses, right? 4 of them have come on the road or on a neutral field. They lose to the Chargers, Jags, Bills, and Denver, all on the road or on a neutral field. That was the week 1 matchup. And they're all potentially playoff caliber teams. So when you look at this team big picture and you say, are the Chiefs viable to make an AFC championship run, whether they make or win the AFC West, I would say I'm betting against it. Now, they might squeak into the playoffs as a wild card team, but knowing their body of work this year where they have struggled to win not only close games, but games on the road that potentially they would pull out, that is a cause of concern because the mark of a good team is you win games at home and you win 1 or 2 on the road. The mark of an elite team is that you step up in road environments, and that's something that Kansas City hasn't done, coupled with the fact they don't have a dominant rushing attack. If they were running the football much more consistently than what they are right now, you would say that they potentially have a shot because of the rushing attack in Mahomes. Their defense, I said, has regressed. They don't have a consistent rushing attack, and they're losing games in road environments. That is alarming as you went to the playoffs. So again, big picture, I'm selling this team. They don't have the mark of an elite caliber team where they could just turn it on and turn it off, and I think they've been exposed this year.
I will say, in their remaining 7 games, they project as a favorite in each of those 7. Their road games, they may lay a touchdown in all of them, Vegas, Tennessee, and Dallas. Their remaining home games are not easy, but Kansas City is not going to be slated as a home underdog the rest of the way. Life is there, and pretty appropriately, the last quarterback to make a Super Bowl and actually proceeded to win it as a wild card team, Tom Brady. We'll see how this Chiefs season continues. But, Joe, I'd be remiss if I didn't give Denver a little additional time here, as they now are 9-2, unbeaten at home, live for the number 1 seed in the AFC. They've not only beaten KC this season, they have a win on the road against Philadelphia, so they beat last year's Super Bowl matchup now to start this season. I look at this offense, and that's what so many people want to focus in on of, is Bo Nix good enough? Is Bo Nix good enough? While those are valid, that is not hardly how this team is defined. Their identity is having the best defense in the league. They have easily one of the 3 best, if not the, and it sets this team up to be a clear-cut, undeniable contender to win the AFC.
Absolutely, and when you have a lockdown corner in Surtain when he's back in the lineup, and Benito and that front 7 are very difficult to rush on, and at the end of the day, they get quarterback pressures and sacks, and they turn you over. As long as Bo Nix and the offense do not turn the football over, Kev, they're going to be in each and every ball game. And at the end of the day now, they have an offensive identity. We've seen R.J. Harvey get more implemented into the rushing attack and passing game. They had Evan Ingram. They have Cortland Sutton. Troy Franklin looks like he's back at Oregon with Bo Nix. So again, this team is starting to evolve and progress week to week to week, and they're trending right now. Now, you don't want to punch yourself out in the regular season, but this is a similar type of run to what we saw Philadelphia when the Eagles last year started 2-2 and reeled off how many straight wins to a Super Bowl championship. It's similar type of run for Sean Payton and Denver. They have to maintain it now, but they're looking good as the number 1 overall seed in the AFC.
We are going to continue to talk about this 3-pack of massive games that we had yesterday, and we had a battle between 2 MVP candidates. Flatly, neither guy played at that level in Matthew Stafford and Sam Darnold. Well, didn't stop Stafford from gaining in the MVP market, and then a lot of panic going around in Seattle with how Darnold looked. We'll get Lisi's thoughts after the break on SportsGrid.
rest of the wide receiver group is underwhelming. Kincaid's had some moments. They need a playmaker in the worst way this offseason. I know they keep trying to get it done or pick these guys off. Maybe Keon Coleman will be that guy. Maybe Josh Palmer will be that guy. It's not working. They haven't replaced Stephon Diggs, and it shows. And I think Josh Allen could use some help. So Buffalo Bills in the offseason, free agency, NFL draft, get yourself a big playmaker.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Notre Dame playing very well, in a position to crack the top 12. Now they have to take care of business.
Here's what I want from and again, we're going to go over who we think is actually going to make the playoffs here a little bit later in the show. But understand this, Joe. I don't want any ACC in there. I don't want any Big 12 in there. Just give me the Big 10 and the SEC. And Mike, quite frankly, if you just gave me Ohio State, Indiana, and the rest of the SEC, boom, boom.
Nah.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Let me ask you this. If they brought in Belichick, you don't think that... Yeah.
Oh, of North Carolina?
Yeah, they're playing much better now.
I wouldn't let him coach my kids. I don't even have any.
I tell you what, they would be more disciplined than what they are now offensively.
They'd be lifeless.
Yes, they would.
They'd be lifeless.
Yes, Brian Dable is a gutless head coach.
Bill Belichick came off a bye against
Gutless
Clemson.
head coach.
3 plays in, they gave him 150 yards.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Another sport like the NBA, which is dealing with its own, scandals, so to speak, and its own headlines with the FBI and what else comes, because this is the same FBI team that also brought the NBA scandals to light. So I'd have to imagine they're working on some other stuff as well right now, and the timing is definitely not a coincidence, but definitely some very significant news in the gambling world that now you're not going to be able to bet more than $200 on a specific pitch market.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Yesterday, the matchup between the Seahawks and the Rams was slated to be an MVP showdown. I should have known it was going to be an ugly affair. 21-19, the Rams win and do not cover any number. 2.5s up to 3.5s. The Seahawks not only walk away with a cover, they had an opportunity to win this game with a walk-off field goal, albeit it was a long one, but 61 these days is, 53, like 3 years ago, despite 4 interceptions from Sam Darnold. So I'll ask you this, Lisi. Maybe you weren't not expecting me to frame it this way. Who was yesterday's game more concerning for? The Rams or the Seahawks?
I think the Seahawks, because, again, we talked about it when we broke this game down. This is the exact same team that gave Sam Darnold and the Vikings fits in their playoff win in Arizona last year. They blitzed him. They got after him. They forced turnovers. He looked mortal, and he turned into a pumpkin before midnight 2 times in a row against the Rams defense. So big picture, when you look at this team moving forward, yeah, they're a good football team, and they can win on the road. But Sam Darnold's question marks regarding big game heroics still have yet to be seen. And again, if you're backing this team to win an NFC championship, you have to be concerned about a quarterback that hasn't stepped up in a big spot in back-to-back years. So you tell me, is he a compiler or is he a quarterback that you can count on to win an NFC championship? Because if we're talking about both of those teams yesterday, I would at least back the guy that has won a Super Bowl with a defense that stepped up at home last night.
Yeah, I think, Joe, all in all, it was wildly concerning for Darnold and the Seahawks because people entering this game were very loudly saying they can win the Super Bowl. And the reality is we need to reframe that. Can Sam Darnold win a playoff game? Because you say, Joe, like, hey, we still have questions about him in big games. We actually right now only have answers, and that he absolutely has no chance to play anything other than his worst football in big games. It happened last year without fail, and now it has happened this season again. And that's Seahawks' resume. College football playoff style? It's awful. I mean, it's truly terrible. Their one win against the winning team is Pittsburgh. Come on now. Let's call it what it is. Jackson Smith-Njigba is the MVP candidate of that team. Jackson Smith-Njigba is a star's star. Sam Darnold is anything but. And the ease at which people were willing to throw this guy as one of the 10 best quarterbacks in football is laughable. It was at the time. It's even worse now. But Seattle was there because that defense is absolutely for real. It's a little reminiscent, Joe, of Denver. But Seattle doesn't have those quality wins, all in all, which is, again, why I frame it the way I did. It's worse for the Seahawks. But that was not a good game for the Rams. Look, their defense absolutely has the ability to play some great games. But Matthew Stafford, MVP favorite? Because he's throwing a bunch of 2-yard touchdown passes? Not for me, man. Not for me. He can win a playoff game or two. He's a Super Bowl champion. I got you. But Matthew Stafford, the best quarterback in football this year? I must be watching a different league.
No, if we're talking about those odds, I would much rather vote or pick Drake May at plus 175 because of how he's elevated that team and he has produced. If they win the AFC East, they potentially get the second or number one seed in the playoffs. I would much rather buy in to Drake May at this point. And I've been a hater or negative on Drake May up until this point. I have no problem readjusting and refocusing my approach midway through the season. But I think when you look at the LA Rams and we're judging them in Stafford big picture, Kevin, you and I have talked about this at length. Every team in the NFL has a weakness. But if we're backing a team or potentially going to say this team is built for the long haul, which team has less weaknesses than any other in the conference? And it's the Philadelphia Eagles. I keep going back to this. It's Philadelphia in the NFC and everybody else. The Rams, Seattle, Detroit, Green Bay, Tampa, they are all a cut under where the Philadelphia Eagles are. And I have no problem saying that. In a big spot, my money is going on Jalen Hurts over Matt Stafford, over Jared Goff that we saw get abused in the loss to the Eagles. Every one of these guys and teams has a major setback or weakness why we can't say they are the most dominant or consistent team. The only team you could say when the chips are in the middle of the table that would get your money or my money would be the Eagles. They have more winners on that team offensively and defensively to step up in a big spot than any team on that list.
Yeah, well, we can start to get into it now, Joe, because Sunday Night Football certainly gave us a lot with the Eagles winning that game 16-9. They get themselves a cover. They get themselves an important win, and they now double up Green Bay and Detroit, which was, as tricky of a schedule spot as we've saw. And we're running close to a break, so I think we have to get into the Detroit side of it and the Philly offensive struggles. So I'll just say this. The Eagles just put forth, I think, the best two-game stretch any defense has all season. And last year's Eagles defense, I talked about it a ton throughout the season. I talked throughout the year around people, and there was only few who really understood it. The Eagles had the best defense in football last year with a gap. It was clear as day. It feels, Joe, like that level is coming back. And Jalen Phillips, look, he's not going to win Defensive Player of the Year, but he looks like he's going to be a Defensive Player of the Year level player now on this Philly defensive line.
He's like the cherry on top to the way Von Miller was for the Rams when they won it. I mean, it's a similar type of situation. I mean, here's the thing. They have made Jared Goff and Jordan Love two of the above average, on the cusp of eliteness quarterbacks look pedestrian in back-to-back weeks. They have shut down two of the most explosive offenses in the NFC and held them to basically a total, Kevin, of 16 points over the last couple of weeks. When are people going to actually appreciate what the Eagles are? Again, they're not going to be a perfect football team, but they are the most dominant team in the NFL entering Week 12, hands down.
And that is why they have now fully taken over status as Super Bowl favorites and conference favorites. But you cannot, I don't mean you, Joe, I mean you, the general you, talk about that game in only glowing fashion for Philly. There were some issues in that one as well. We'll talk about that and the concern for the Lions after the break.
The rest of the wide receiver group isn't underwhelming. Kincaid's had some moments. They need a playmaker in the worst way this offseason. I know they keep trying to get it done or pick these guys off. Maybe Keon Coleman will be that guy. Maybe Josh Palmer will be that guy. It's not working. They haven't replaced Stephon Diggs, and it shows. And I think Josh Allen could use some help. So Buffalo Bills in the offseason, free agency, NFL draft, get yourself a big playmaker.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Notre Dame playing very well, in a position to crack the top 12. Now they have to take care of business.
Here's what I want from my, and again, we're going to go over who we think is actually going to make the playoffs here a little bit later in the show. But understand this, Joe. I don't want any ACC in there. I don't want any Big 12 in there. Just give me the Big 10 and the SEC. And Mike, quite frankly, if you just gave me Ohio State, Indiana, and the rest of the SEC, boom, boom.
Nah.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Let me ask you this. If they brought in Belichick, you don't think that... Yeah.
Oh, of North Carolina?
Yeah, they're playing much better now.
I wouldn't let him coach my kids. I don't even have any.
I tell you what, they would be more disciplined than what they are now offensively.
They'd be
lifeless.
Yes, they would. They'd be lifeless.
Yes, Brian Dable is a gutless head coach.
Bill Belichick came off a bye against
gutless
Clemson.
Head coach.
3 plays in, they gave him 150 yards.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Another sport like the NBA, which is dealing with its own, scandals, so to speak, and its own headlines with the FBI and what else comes, because this is the same FBI team that also brought the NBA scandals to light. So I'd have to imagine they're working on some other stuff as well right now, and the timing is definitely not a coincidence, but definitely some very significant news in the gambling world that now you're not going to be able to bet more than $200 on a specific pitch market.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
It's Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Kevin Walsh with Joe Lisi. The Eagles getting a 16-9 victory over the Detroit Lions. And Joe, understandably, singing the praises of this Eagles performance. And defensively, every single ounce of it is warranted. And Jake Elliott, too. Outside of that, we've got some questions. Lane Johnson has basically been the most important Eagle for a decade, and whenever he is out there, the offense always ends up on uneven footing, and he may be out now for over a month moving forward for Philadelphia. They're going to have to figure something out. But when we evaluate this Eagles team, we try and figure out what are the biggest issues. The run game still cannot get fully going. Saquon Barkley with another game under 3.5 yards per carry. Jalen Hurts does not seem to be the most willing runner. I think you can give that a pass because it's the regular season and we see the great quarterback save some of that for the postseason. It feels noteworthy. Nick Sirianni took his very questionable decision against Green Bay and quadrupled down on it with decisions against the Lions yesterday. They weren't questionable. They were flatly incorrect and insane. And I have to be the premier Sirianni guy. Lisi's the Eagles guy. I'm the Sirianni guy. That was a mess. But for me, when I look at this game, what was most unsettling is for not the first time this year, they run the, here, fine, will this get you happy? Offense to A.J. Brown. And unsurprisingly, the results were bad. He's quitting on deep balls down the field, and people will say, oh, the passing game to A.J. Brown is the only one that worked. Wrong. Jalen Hurts actually averaged more yards per attempt when targeting the rest of the team, despite a significantly lower completion percentage in those games. A.J. Brown, will he be satisfied off this one? I assume not. But this Philadelphia Eagles team has got to get this under control because they're not even out there playing real games. They are almost practicing, Joe, in an attempt to appease A.J. Brown. And they're not. These are not real plays. It's not real offense. It's muddy. It's messy, and it leaves Philly vulnerable back-to-back weeks in games with that defensive effort. They should not be vulnerable in.
No, they shouldn't, Kevin. You're right. I mean, I'm watching that game in first drive. A.J. Brown is targeted, basically almost 2 or 3 times, in multiple back-to-back drives. They did try to force feed him, and maybe at the end of the day, Sirianni is tired of hearing it. He wants to feed his playmaker. But I will say this. I think the rushing attack eventually will get going. And I understand Lane Johnson goes out in the first quarter of that matchup. They have implemented Tank Bigsby in certain sets. He's a dominant runner that could help out Saquon Barkley if they start running more out of passing sets, right? And again, what does this offense look like in a playoff type of environment if A.J. Brown is not getting, let's say, 10 or 11 targets per game? If they beat, I don't know, let's say they beat the Rams, in their first game and they win by 15 points, but AJ has 3 catches for 40 yards. Is he going to quit on the NFC Championship run? That's what you have to worry about now. Again, I still think they're okay. I think they've rallied around this situation. Yes, to a degree, they force-fed him, but I also think that they sort of went to the Detroit weaknesses in the back end, and that's why they dialed it up. But it doesn't change my assessment on Nick Sirianni, Kevin, and the Philadelphia Eagles. I think entering week number 12, I think they still are the most complete team in the NFL with all of the sidelines and with all of the storylines surrounding AJ and everything you can maybe assume injury-wise. This team is still built for a Super Bowl run.
Yeah, that I completely agree with, because let's remember last year's Eagles team. Best defense in the league, uneven offensively. They score the most points of any team in a single playoff run. Now, you'd be right to say that last year's Eagles team had the best rush attack maybe the league has ever seen, and they do not have that this year. That is why the Philadelphia Eagles are not painted as a plus 250 favorite. To make an NBA comparison, they are not the Oklahoma City Thunder. But they are right now your clear favorites to win the Super Bowl. Nobody can match up performance in all 3 phases. It's not always consistent, but we've seen throughout the year the record, the path, the pedigree. That is what the Philadelphia Eagles are. Their opponent, not as much. What we saw from the Detroit Lions, as well as what we saw from Josh Allen against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where he has put himself firmly back in the MVP race, and the Bucs continue to drop in the NFC market. That is all still to come with you right here. It is Pro Football Today on SportsGrid.
The rest of the wide receiver group is underwhelming. Kincaid's had some moments. They need a playmaker in the worst way this offseason. I know they keep trying to get it done or pick these guys off. Maybe Keon Coleman will be that guy. Maybe Josh Palmer will be that guy. It's not working. They haven't replaced Stephon Diggs, and it shows. And I think Josh Allen could use some help. So Buffalo Bills in the offseason, free agency, NFL draft, get yourself a big playmaker.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Notre Dame playing very well, in a position to crack the top 12. Now they have to take care of business.
Here's what I want from and again, we're going to go over who we think is actually going to make the playoffs here a little bit later in the show. But understand this, Joe. I don't want any ACC in there. I don't want any Big 12 in there. Just give me the Big 10 and the SEC. And Mike, quite frankly, if you just gave me Ohio State, Indiana, and the rest of the SEC, boom, boom.
Nah.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Let me ask you this. If they brought in Belichick, you don't think that... Yeah.
Oh, of North Carolina?
Yeah, they're playing much better now.
I wouldn't let him coach my kids. I don't even have any.
I tell you what, they would be more disciplined than what they are now.
No, they wouldn't. They'd be lifeless.
Yes, they would.
They'd be lifeless.
Yes, Brian Dable is a gutless head coach.
Bill Belichick came off a bye against
gutless
Clemson.
head coach.
3 plays in, they gave him 150 yards.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Another sport like the NBA, which is dealing with its own, scandals, so to speak, and its own headlines with the FBI and what else comes, because this is the same FBI team that also brought the NBA scandals to light. So I'd have to imagine they're working on some other stuff as well right now, and the timing is definitely not a coincidence, but definitely some very significant news in the gambling world that now you're not going to be able to bet more than $200 on a specific pitch market.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Back with you right here on SportsGrid. Joe, just the Lions portion of Sunday Night Football, only 9 points, 3 of them really gifted by the Eagles' decision to go for it deep into that game that they did not pick up. Jared Goff, 14 for 37 in this game, completing under 40% of his passes, had a touchdown, had an interception, sacked a couple of times here. For as bad as some of the Eagles' offense looked, it looked twice as good all in all, really, with what we saw from Detroit. A nightmarish result for the Lions, who are currently now settled in as third place in the NFC North. How concerning was that result?
Oh, very. But again, I think the Lions are a good team. I don't think they're an elite team. And that game against Philadelphia was one in the trenches. And they do not have a superior offense and defensive lines to the Philadelphia Eagles. You're looking at a gauge of potentially the best team in the NFC. I keep saying it, and everybody else. They're going to exploit the Detroit Lions 9 times out of every 10 games they play. And when you look at the loss on the road, it's exactly what it is to beat the Detroit Lions. You beat them physical in the trenches, and you get pressure on Jared Goff, which is exactly what they did. And at the end of the day, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean in that secondary can play superior man-to-man coverage and contain, for the most part, St. Brown and Jamison Williams. Now, Williams got open for the big touchdown crossing pattern. They did play that game without Sam Laporta, but it doesn't matter, Kevin. The Eagles are a better team. And yes, do I think Detroit is maybe the second best team in the NFC? Yes. But are they built potentially to win a Super Bowl? No, because if they have to go up against the Philadelphia Eagles, in my opinion, they're losing that game every time because they can't run on that front seven. And at the end of the day, their defense can't contain that offense of Jalen Hurts, no matter how pedestrian they are at times.
All in all, for the Lions, they are struggling as they go up in competition this year. If you look at the losses, Kansas City, Philly, Green Bay, all on the road, to be fair, this is a Lions team, though, Lisi, that last year played a lot of bully ball. And that's not happening, and the offensive line is a question. And I think Detroit will be in the mix. They're not going to be my pick. I just wonder if this team is one and done. Does that lead to some drastic change? I am not saying firing Dan Campbell. He will certainly be keeping his job. I think something, though, will come if this group, if they miss the playoffs. It's on the board. Someone's going to miss. You know, if it's Chicago, then it's, you know, everybody else is going to feel okay. If the Bears make the playoffs, someone is going to be very, very disappointed in their season. And I think that becomes a really interesting thing to watch. Now, yesterday, go ahead, Joe.
I just want to say, you know, it's similar to Cincinnati and the success they had with Joe Burrow. There is a certain window that you have to capitalize on. And let's keep in mind, Kevin, Cincinnati, Detroit, they're typically losing organizations that have never won a Super Bowl and all of a sudden now are trying to catch lightning in a bottle. And when you lose your offensive defensive coordinators, such the way Detroit did last year, you try to find that mojo. And if you can't find it, you're going to lose to better competition. Jared Goff is a good quarterback. He's not elite. He's not Jalen Hurts, a potentially MVP candidate. Now, maybe Hurts doesn't have his type of numbers, but again, when the game is on the line, Jalen Hurts is going to win more games than Jared Goff, bottom line. And their defense is going to step up, and they're more consistent and have a better foundation defensively to carry them to a championship. Nobody is outside of Hutchinson. Nobody's raving about the front seven of Detroit. They're good, but they're not like Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Zach Vaughn, and all of the playmakers that Philly has in the front seven. That's what's going to carry them on top of the offensive talent. That is why Detroit needs to capitalize sooner rather than later.
Now, if we're talking QB performances, there was one yesterday, brings a tear to my eye.
Here we go.
And on the first drive, I said, oh my gosh, he's back. And that was seen true every drive the rest of the way. The real Josh Allen, will you please stand up? What a sight to see you, my friend. Because the real Josh Allen is not this neutered down version that Buffalo has been giving us now for a year and a half. It's what we saw yesterday. Two-hand shovel pass out of the back of the end zone, the worst interception we've maybe seen thrown this year. And you know how he followed that up? Laser. Absolute laser. I'll run it in myself. 3 touchdowns in the air, 3 touchdowns on the ground, 2 interceptions. This is him. This is Josh Allen to his core. It's this quarterback. It's not, let's pick a game. 209 yards, 2 touchdowns against the New Orleans Saints. It's certainly not 12 completions for 163 yards and a touchdown against Carolina. No, this is the game, highest yards per attempt. Yet his completion percentage dropped massively. Get it down the field, Josh. Now, I know one of those was a screen pass to Ty Johnson. I don't care. I am speaking glowingly of what I saw because I believe this is the only chance Josh Allen actually has to get it done. And I won't be betting on it. I worry that demon time Josh Allen comes with good and bad, and the bad, all in all, will be too costly. But gosh, is it fun to watch. And it offers us the highest version of Josh Allen, Joe. What an absolute unbelievable performance, start to finish, from Josh Allen.
The good, the bad, and the ugly for Josh Allen. Even James Cook with 66 receiving yards and a touchdown.
Look at it. You love it.
I wasn't on it yesterday on Sunday. It kills me. But this is, you know what this is? Hey, Ken Dorsey. Hey, Joe Brady. Take the governor off of Josh Allen. All right? Take the governor off and let him rip, baby. Because that's what you have to do. We need 8,000 RPMs. We got to redline it with Josh Allen. To your point, Kev, that's when they're lethal. When he's showboating, when he's improvising, and he's breaking plays. Sure, he's going to throw 2 interceptions. He's just like Fernando Mendoza in a big spot. Give him the Heisman, right? It doesn't matter. He steps up in a big spot, and that's what happens. Give him the Heisman.
Okay, that's just you being upset at Gus, because there's no way you're comparing Mendoza and Josh Allen.
That's what Mendoza. If you look, everybody's raving. Every big game that Mendoza threw an interception. Iowa, he followed it up with a touchdown, baby.
Gotcha.
Even the Penn State gave him. Give him the Heisman.
Look, I'll just flatly say this. That game for Buffalo undid everything that happened against Miami as it pertains to Josh's chances to winning MVP. It does not mean that they're the best team in the world. No. You go out there, 6 total touchdowns. By the way, for Matt Stafford and his 6 billion 1-yard passing touchdowns, he's got 27 on the year. He trails Josh Allen for the league lead in total touchdowns. I got to be honest with you, and this is going to, I hate what I'm about to say. I still care about awards, and I would like the sanctity of these awards to hold up. I'm happy with a Josh Allen MVP. Okay, come on, cut it out with this Matt Stafford, man. Come on. Sam Darnold, come on. What are we doing? Drake May, maybe. Jonathan Taylor, a running back, disgusting. Jalen Hurts in the race. Records there. Not much else. Records there. Doesn't turn it over. That's all I'm saying. I wouldn't mind a Josh Allen MVP. I'm interested in it. I'm looking at that number. I'm side-eyeing it, Joe.
Where's Caleb on that list? I'm shocked. How come Caleb is not on that list?
Remember when you used to value winning? Remember when you used to be about results? So you know what then? You want to take a cheap shot? We'll talk about Caleb Williams after the break. We'll also talk about Baker Mayfield and the Bucs and how concerning of a loss this may have been, and also some other big injury news out of the NFC South after the break on SportsGrid.
The rest of the wide receiver group isn't underwhelming. Kincaid's had some moments. They need a playmaker in the worst way this offseason. I know they keep trying to get it done or pick these guys off. Maybe Keon Coleman will be that guy. Maybe Josh Palmer will be that guy. It's not working. They haven't replaced Stephon Diggs, and it shows. And I think Josh Allen could use some help. So Buffalo Bills in the offseason, free agency, NFL draft, get yourself a big playmaker.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Notre Dame playing very well, in a position to crack the top 12. Now they have to take care of business.
Here's what I want from and again, we're going to go over who we think is actually going to make the playoffs here a little bit later in the show. But understand this, Joe. I don't want any ACC in there. I don't want any Big 12 in there. Just give me the Big 10 and the SEC. And Mike, quite frankly, if you just gave me Ohio State, Indiana, and the rest of the SEC, boom, boom.
Now,
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
let me ask you this. If they brought in Belichick, you don't think that... Yeah.
Go off North Carolina,
Yeah, they're playing much better now.
I wouldn't let him coach my kids. I don't even have any.
I tell you what, they would be more disciplined than what they are now.
No, they wouldn't. They'd be lifeless.
Yes, they would.
They'd be lifeless.
Yes, Brian Dable is a gutless head coach.
Bill Belichick came off a bye against
gutless
Clemson.
head coach.
Replaced him. They gave him 150 yards.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Another sport like the NBA, which is dealing with its own, scandals, so to speak, and its own headlines with the FBI and what else comes, because this is the same FBI team that also brought the NBA scandals to light. So I'd have to imagine they're working on some other stuff as well right now, and the timing is definitely not a coincidence, but definitely some very significant news in the gambling world that now you're not going to be able to bet more than $200 on a specific pitch market.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Pro Football Today. Joe, just quickly, we talked about the Buffalo side of their game against Tampa Bay. For the Bucs, I don't think this is a game to overreact on. I actually feel even more confident in what I said heading into it, where if you are a believer in this team, a loss is good for you. Look at Tampa Bay in the NFC market now. Dropping like a rock, 14-1. That is more than double the number of a Seattle Seahawks team. Yet the Bucs are significantly bigger favorites to host a home playoff game than Seattle. In fact, probably that game would be against Seattle, a team that they've already beaten here. For the Bucs, the goals are very simple. Get healthy, win your division. They can only get healthier, it feels like, right? Though famous last words in San Francisco, and they're still big favorites to win that division, Lisi.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, too, is we see younger players, Kev, getting incorporated in duty that maybe they wouldn't have gained throughout the regular season. Players like Sean Tucker that accounted for 3 touchdowns, Tez Johnson that has stepped up in the passing attack. So when you get those playmakers back, hopefully like Mike Evans and some of the others like McMillan in the passing attack, that if it's a playoff environment, Baker Mayfield has multiple targets and weapons to utilize. Once Bucky Irvin comes back, they have now a 3-headed monster at the running back position. Rashad White, Tucker, and Bucky Irvin, you have fresh legs at all times. This team is potentially built as a dark horse to maybe make an NFC championship run. And I'll just say this. I know they lost to Detroit in the regular season, but if they were to meet up, let's say, in a playoff type of setting, I would still buy into Baker as an underdog in that type of situation. They never get respect. They have won playoff games with Baker Mayfield. They have played toe-to-toe with some of the best competition on their schedule, including going to Buffalo on Sunday and going toe-to-toe with them for basically 54 minutes. I mean, what more can you ask for out of this team? I think, again, they're not a perfect team. They're not going to be 17-0, but if they are an 11-win football team, they're going to be a choice to think about big picture outside the Eagles to maybe make a run.
Sticking in the NFC South, tough news out of Atlanta. Michael Penix with a knee injury potentially could be season-ending. And I think what is tough for Atlanta, Michael Penix was having one of the best games of his career while he was still out there against the Carolina Panthers. And this is the second time we have seen Kirk Cousins step in for Penix and look absolutely shot. Kirk Cousins, I think, is throwing away any opportunity at being given a chance to be a starter next year in this league. But maybe more important than any of that, Joe, with respect to Penix and the injury, is Bryce Young of the Carolina Panthers getting their 6th win of the season. And Bryce Young, your guy, usually a sell-me-something candidate. I see you're angry, and it's definitely because you didn't alt his yardage. Throws for 448 and 3.
I mean, 167 and a half was his total, Kev. We could have made a fortune based off of Bryce Young.
Yep.
And, this is twofold. This is Bryce Young's performance. This is Dave Canales now doing a fantastic job in year number 2. And the third factor is basically Raheem Morris in Atlanta being a carbon copy of exactly what they were under Arthur Smith 2.0. They haven't elevated their game. They have playmakers. They have no offensive identity outside of Drake London and Bijan Robinson. They don't utilize both players correctly. And their defense now is falling apart at the end of the regular season. And again, why they decided to go Raheem Morris's route, I still don't know at this particular point. But what I can tell you is if Carolina does potentially play like this the rest of the way, they're going to be a very difficult out. They have to get more consistency. We talked about it in the pregame. 1 week they're up, the following week they lose. The next week they have a marquee win. They dial it up with a loss to the New Orleans Saints as a 4.5, 5-point home favorite. You can't have that in the back nine. They need to find their treading. But if they could channel this, they have the opportunity to be a potential 9-win football team.
Back on the Atlanta side, though, Joe, Raheem Morris is a coach that I know you don't have a lot of belief in, willing to fade. It's part of the reason you liked Carolina in that game. We're seeing now in the prediction markets, look at Kalshi, odds to be the next coach fired in the National Football League, Raheem Morris is trending as the favorite, surpassing Mike McDaniel, who I do not think, you know me, I don't think he's going to be fired at all. He's definitely not getting fired in season, is how it feels. Stefanski gaining traction as well as Jonathan Gannon. But right now, Raheem Morris is the favorite.
What have you done for me lately, Kev? Let's not forget, how long ago was the Thursday night victory over the Buffalo Bills? It looked like everything was there for the taking for the Atlanta Falcons. What have they done since that time? Critical loss after critical loss, and they lose to a team that's basically in a rebuild in the Carolina Panthers. Raheem Morris and Kirk Cousins specifically, that came in after Michael Penix was hurt, were supposed to elevate this team, Kevin, past where Arthur Smith was and not getting this team to the playoffs. And I'll keep going back to it. Where are they now? He's a defensive wizard. The defense is terrible. The defense allowed, after they had a basic 21-3 first half lead, they lose in overtime 30-27. Where are the adjustments? You and I sit on the desk every weekend and we say, how stupid can you be that not give the football to your workhorse Bijan Robinson week to week to week? Now, yeah, he got the football against Carolina last weekend, but is that going to happen the following week? Or is he going to get 7 touches the way he did in the loss to New England? This is what we're talking about when we talk about head coaches being brought in to elevate teams to the next level. And maybe Mike McDaniel will save his job, but Raheem Morris hasn't done anything in basically a year and a half to lead me to believe that this team is any closer to a wild card or division title.
I will say, I think Stefanski could have some value in this market. Shedeur Sanders enters the game due to a Dylan Gabriel injury, and seemingly they say the owner really likes Shedeur. And if the results don't stack with Sanders, which they are not likely to, that could then point the eye towards Stefanski. And maybe Stefanski at a moment's like, hey, I'm going to go back to Dylan. Owner's like, you're absolutely not going back to Dylan. We're selling out with Shedeur. I just think, right or wrong, right? We sometimes agree, sometimes we don't. I think you could see Stefanski, that next man out in Cleveland. We still got a primetime preview loading up for you right here on Pro Football Today.
The rest of the wide receiver group isn't underwhelming. Kincaid's had some moments. They need a playmaker in the worst way this offseason. I know they keep trying to get it done or pick these guys off. Maybe Keon Coleman will be that guy. Maybe Josh Palmer will be that guy. It's not working. They haven't replaced Stephon Diggs, and it shows. And I think Josh Allen could use some help. So Buffalo Bills in the offseason, free agency, NFL draft, get yourself a big playmaker.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Notre Dame playing very well, in a position to crack the top 12. Now they have to take care of business.
Here's what I want from and again, we're going to go over who we think is actually going to make the playoffs here a little bit later in the show. But understand this, Joe. I don't want any ACC in there. I don't want any Big 12 in there. Just give me the Big 10 and the SEC. And Mike, quite frankly, if you just gave me Ohio State, Indiana, and the rest of the SEC, boom, boom.
Now,
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
let me ask you this. If they brought in Belichick, you don't think that... Yeah.
Go of North Carolina,
Yeah, they're playing much better now.
I wouldn't let him coach my kids. I don't even have any.
I tell you what, they would be more disciplined than what they are now offensively.
They'd be
yes,
lifeless.
they would.
They'd be lifeless.
Yes, Brian Dable is a gutless head coach.
Bill Belichick came off a bye against
gutless
Clemson.
head coach.
3 plays in, they gave him 150 yards.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Another sport like the NBA, which is dealing with its own, scandals, so to speak, and its own headlines with the FBI and what else comes, because this is the same FBI team that also brought the NBA scandals to light. So I'd have to imagine they're working on some other stuff as well right now, and the timing is definitely not a coincidence, but definitely some very significant news in the gambling world that now you're not going to be able to bet more than $200 on a specific pitch market.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
All right, we got a primetime preview loaded up here with myself and Lisi. But, Joe, I'm going to try and rapid fire a couple of things, if you will. Firstly, Shedeur Sanders checks in for Cleveland. It went horribly. Is that a huge thing to you? Is that a small thing? What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, I would hope that next week Shedeur Sanders gets a start, and then we can make an assessment then. But it wasn't a very good performance. He had basically one nice throw to Fannin in the fourth quarter, but then couldn't elevate and take his team to a fourth quarter comeback. Only completes 4 passes. Didn't really look like he was reading coverage. Maybe he wasn't prepared to go in. I don't know, but it's a twofold type of situation with Stefanski, because if Stefanski is not behind Shedeur Sanders and it's more of an owner move, is he going to do what it takes to get Shedeur up to speed to make him prepared and game ready, and so where you can make an honest assessment, or is he just going to lay him out to the wind and just let this team fall apart? Because from a defensive perspective, they're dominant. Myles Garrett again with another dominant performance. Their defense keeps them in games. They were in a position against a red-hot Baltimore team and just didn't make enough plays offensively to pull it out. But again, you can't make the assessment based off a half of work. You have to see it if he were to start the remaining part of the season. Then you can make an honest assessment about Shedeur Sanders.
For me, I think if you are – look, he was awful, flatly, and let's not pretend that if he was great, he wouldn't be getting a ton of praise. It was not an ideal situation for Sanders, though not an impossible situation for Sanders. I think the hope is he gets next week against Vegas, who will be on a short week we're going to talk about in a minute, playing Dallas, and is not very good defensively, and see what that looks like. And if it's awful, maybe they do go back to Gabriel. Quick other button here, though, Lisi, just because we're talking about quarterbacks and struggling. And, look, for Caleb Williams, he was hardly great in that football game. But, clutch, they made a play. The bigger story is J.J. McCarthy might play himself out of this job in Minnesota by the end of this season.
Yeah, he's terrible. Let's call it what it is. And the rah-rah BS with the John Cena, face paint like the Ultimate Warrior. Let's get enough already, all right? I threw the WWE comment. I don't want to see the face paint.
Yeah.
He throws a terrible incompletion, and he comes over with the rah-rah hitting the offensive lineman. It's almost like when the field goal kicker, misses the field goal by a wide margin, and he's high-fiving everybody. Can we get real? Step up and make plays, JJ. You're a first-round draft pick. You're supposed to hit a 10-yard out, especially when you have one of the most elite wide receivers in the NFL in Justin Jefferson, and you can't get him the football. I mean, we didn't get Addison and Jefferson the football until the game was signed, sealed, and delivered. That's a terrible, pathetic effort. And at the end of the day, if Carson Wentz has a broken collarbone, as long as he could snap and take the ball, put him under center, man, that's the only way they have a chance to make the playoffs.
All right, Joe, let's figure it out. Tonight, we've got Dallas. They're going to close as above a field goal favorite in this game. We're seeing 3.5 in the market. The total for this one, 49 or 49.5, maybe coming a bounce down. How are you looking to bet this matchup, Geno Smith versus Dak Prescott?
My heart is telling me the over. We've seen, basically the dead under in the Sunday night game. But again, Dallas has to attack that secondary over the top. Max Crosby and that front seven, led by White, are very good in run support. So I think it'll be tough sledding for Dallas to run the football. They got to challenge them over the top the way Jacksonville did. I'm going to lean to the over. I do like Dallas in the matchup, Kevin, to win and cover this ball game.
Yeah, I think Dallas is tempting off of a bye. Also, trying to remind people that they made defensive improvements at the trade deadline. Now, those might be misguided decisions, Quinnen Williams, Logan Wilson, but they still made them. So it makes Dallas a better football team. I would have loved to be able to bet them last week, potentially, off of those trades where there was such a negative perception out there around them. I'm not as tempted in the side. I'm looking to back Geno Smith in this one. His passing touchdowns prop, Joe, is one that has really stood out to me tonight. Any other key player props you want to mention before we get out of here?
I like Tucker to score tonight, and I'm sort of leaning towards Ashton Genty tonight in the rushing attack. I don't know if they could go toe-to-toe with Dak in that lethal passing attack. I think it's Genty on the ground, 80+ at plus money tonight.
We'll see. Genty certainly could use a monster game. The one-time considerable favorite to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. He has long said since dropped out of that race, but you'd love to keep the momentum going. Fascinated to see what we get out of Brock Bowers here, who finished that game with 1 catch and 3 targets against the Denver Broncos. You cannot imagine that that'll happen again. For Joe Lisi, I'm Kevin Walsh. This is Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. We will see you next time.
Where are the wins coming from? And yes, I agree. Are they good enough to win those games? Yeah, of course they are, right? But the reality of this team is not very good this year in one-score games. They're not. That was their bread and butter a year ago. Like every win last year, one-score game, the Chiefs found a way to win it.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
The 35 cents, though, for yes on Ohio State.
Yeah.
I like that, Donnie. I think there's value in that right now because we only got, 3 weeks left to go. Then we'll have conference championships. Yeah, the more they keep winning, and they will win, the more that will increase, and that's a pretty good return on an investment there with Kalshi.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
A little bit of a brand crisis when it comes to the league going from 54 to 72. Although I think it can help some players, I think it kind of hurts the brand of the league and what it kind of stood for, the innovation, the loudness, the different aspects of the game, the whole shotgun aspect, which makes it different. But is it better for these guys when they show up in majors?
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, All Team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.